Talkopolis Programming is sponsored in part by Dev Digital, innovative software solutions. The Vane Center, now celebrating 10 years service in Nashville, Tennessee. Hi guys, welcome to Serious Startups, where we explore the nuts and bolts of successful entrepreneurship. And I'm again joined by our wonderful panel, Dave Ledgerwood and Monica Selby. Welcome, guys.
Good to be here, as always.
Good to see you.
Hey, we're going to talk about something really interesting today. We've had a long, in-depth conversation about this off camera, so we thought we'd continue to have it.
But I missed it.
You did miss it.
Now I'm
Yeah, so it wasn't in depth enough because Ledge wasn't here.
Now I need to add maximum depth.
Stone cold Dave Ledgerwood, who is strictly business and no passion. And so we thought we would actually talk about, the difference between a hobby and a business, and how sometimes people like to translate their hobby into a business, and that can be successful. Sometimes, more often than not, very difficult. And so, Ledge, do you want to start? Monica, do you want to start?
Well, I walk into this conversation after the fact, and I think that this dovetails with a thing that I often am approached by, and people say you need to be uber passionate about the thing you do for your business, that the core of that thing must be something you're passionate about. And it just simply hasn't been my experience, that I am the number 2 COO execution guy, and I like other people's ideas. And I get passionate about building businesses. I'm a passionate entrepreneur, independent of ideas. My hobby is building businesses. This is what I would do all the time if I could. I read books all night about that, and so I don't resonate with the idea that it's like but I think you get to this core thing that matters to you. I like managing and building businesses and making them into money counting machines.
I know this has been a huge stumbling block for me as I've thought through like what I want to do and like my long-term goals, because I'm a writer by nature, and so people talk about being a writer, and you have all this, just write, and it's not about the money and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, well, it kind of is about the money.
Right.
I mean, maybe that shows me how unpassionate or uncreative I am. But
realistic, probably.
The bank doesn't take deposits in words or passion.
I sure wish they did. I have a lot of words.
Unless they're on a check.
And employees don't take paychecks denominated in good code or good ideas, right? And you need to translate that. That's just a real thing.
And so one of the things I've said a lot is I love writing and I love business, but I have to say I'm not sure I love the business of writing. Like that, the business of writing sucks a lot of the joy of writing out of it.
Right.
Whereas, and at first I thought, when I first started in this, I was writing and I thought, I'm just not a business person because I don't want to market my writing or I don't want to do all these things. But then I got involved in, I founded a media company, and suddenly I was marketing on behalf of the media company.
Right.
And I was suddenly looking at the bottom line for the media company, not for myself. And I realized, no, I'm really passionate about great business. I don't want my business to be writing anymore. Those two things, for me, need to be separate, and writing needs to be a part of my business, but not my core business.
I think a lot of things, and I'll speak from a musician standpoint. I mean, you grow up playing music.
That's totally messed up.
Totally messed up. I mean, my thing is I don't know how not to. I mean, I had a drum kit before I could walk. Right. So I started when I was 3, and just on it went. So you just have this makeup, and so you naturally have these people around you who say, this is what you should do, you can turn this into a career. Now that happens in other things as well, probably more in the creative arts than anything else, but probably sports is another thing that happens in. All those different things. So,
or the discipline of sports, the things you learn from.
I think that's exactly the point. It's I think that when you're looking at the difference between a hobby and turning it into a career, there are certain things that you learn in your hobby, like the discipline that goes into turning up the training all the time, all those being being a part of a team, not letting the team down, being able to push that extra mile, translates so well into business. So you don't necessarily have to turn your hobby into a career, but you could learn from the things that you've learned from that hobby and shift them across. Ledge, you would probably just enjoy, sitting back and pulling things apart and putting them back together the way that you would like to see them work best.
I look at systems. I like to play with stuff. But I also play guitar. Like I love doing music, and there's a creative element to that. But I never looked at that and was like, I'm going to make money from that. I have 5 guitars on the wall, but that's not my thing. That's what I might do to go release my brain or meditate. Or, I love hiking. I love running. Like, where's the business in that?
Right.
But, at the long nights when I'm at 16 hours deep in my entrepreneurial day, like, can I draw back on like, hey, this kind of feels just as crappy as running 16 miles as fast as I can, right? You know, and like that's
which feels pretty crappy.
Discipline, entrepreneurship is endurance. I mean, it's not always awesome. The 20% generally outweighs the unawesomeness of the 80. But it's just like running. Like most of the time when you're long distance training, a lot of those days feel terrible.
You bet.
But the day that you get that runner high and you're dialed in and you kill it in a race, like that's what you do it for. And you don't know when that day is going to happen.
Well, I think it's a great analogy because you can't be at your peak all the time. No. You have those ebbs and flows. You know,
in your mood or your performance, some days you perform great, but you feel awful.
Yeah.
You know, and it just depends.
So when we were talking, Kane, you off camera, you said something that I thought was really great about pulling out what it is that makes you, like you were talking about if you're mentoring musicians, and you pull out. Can you say that?
Sure. Well, I mean, often when I speak to young musicians and they kind of ask me about my path, and then we look at their path, and you can always see this wonderful glimmer in their eye that you just never want to take away. But
I could be as successful as Kane.
I'll get Stone Cold in to take the glimmer out next time.
Stone Cold.
Nice.
I have been called the dream killer.
The point, we all need one. Usually they're the CFO though. But
you may not have another check for that.
The point being is that pretty much what I said before is that I am a musician, and it's the process that I love. I love pulling words apart and crafting them into a song. And I said to Monica, I've learned in my 36 years, the thing that I'm best at is I'm a problem solver. Every single thing I've done, I can look back on and say the reason I've been good at that is because I've analyzed it and worked out how to do it best for me.
Pull the parts apart.
Pull the parts apart,
right.
Put them back together.
And it could be words, or it could be
effective, efficient way to get the best possible outcome.
Right.
And I approach Talkopolis like that. I approach a Nashville Imprint like that. So I just think that there's, to get to Monica's point, I was saying that there are a lot of 16-year-old kids, say for instance 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, who will come to Nashville to be a musician and think that they have to go and work at perhaps a coffee shop or something like that and earn a minimum wage. But in this entrepreneurial climate, pull apart what you're actually good at and then think, where can I best put that and maybe make a $2 million company and then play music all you like.
Right. Whenever
I mean, so you don't
whenever
have
you want.
to.
Or like you play in your church band.
Don't suffocate your talents, I don't think, by going and undermining yourself and thinking this is what I have to do. Use those attributes the best possible way you can to move yourself forward. And it might not specifically be in that field you want to be in first and foremost, but it may set you up to get to that goal eventually.
Right. I mean, people say music, right? But it could be lyricist, or it could be like, I'm really drawn to musical theory. Right. And it's really math. And there's all kinds of ways in different instruments, right? You experience a piano different than a guitar, and what is all that stuff?
You're such a nerd.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Stone Cold.
Right.
So let's talk about the people who, I mean, I'm trying to think of an example, but the people who are fortunate enough to turn a hobby into
I feel like you see this a lot in the mom blogger.
Moms do it all the time.
Moms do it all the time. They learn how to sew, and then they sell there's a company, Polly Wally Doodle, I think is the name of it, out of North Carolina. Don't laugh, it's a cute kids clothes company. Right. So she taught herself to sew because they were short on money. Her designs are super cute, and so she put them on Facebook. Her friends ordered them, and now she accidentally innovated a way to run a business on Facebook. Like, it's this crazy thing. Yeah. They were featured in Inc. or Entrepreneur, one of those magazines. But yeah, she turned her hobby into a career. And I will say this, and I don't want to be too general because I don't want to offend anybody.
I'll do it.
But what I've noticed
We've never done that before.
Well, we haven't yet. I'm probably about to. But what I have noticed in, because I kind of straddle both of those worlds, right? Like, I've been a stay-at-home mom, and so I have a lot of great friends who are in that world, and who built themselves successful blogs or books or sewing or bakeries, that kind of thing, just on the side as their kids were taking a nap. Those are amazing women that I really admire. On the other side, you have the hard-driven career woman who either doesn't have kids or, puts the career ahead of the kids if she does have them, that kind of thing. And I would say that I think that turning a hobby into a career fits best with the kind of mom who is willing to stay at home or has other hobbies and like that kind of thing. It didn't work for me because I was too hard-headed. I couldn't get there fast enough during nap time.
I've got to say, I'll throw a blanket too, because I think that, not to cover everyone again, but a stay-at-home mum, their businesses stem from such practicality.
Exactly,
and
which
so
I've always admired. I wish that could be me.
So many of these businesses stem from a need. And I think that that is an incredible way to go from being hobby to business, because most people go, you know, a musician, I'll go again, okay, I want to be the star of the world. I mean, it's so unpractical. Who needs it?
Who needs another star? Yeah.
I did this because my kids need clothes.
And that's
a damn good reason.
And
I do eat well.
And there's probably other people like me because of that.
Great way to think.
Everybody with kids, you know, and they all have, you know, bodies that need clothing.
And when I was a stay-at-home mom, like, so I'm not great at cleaning house, and I can't sew, and I can cook, but I don't love it. And like, there were all those domestic things that I'm perfectly capable of doing.
You call yourself a Southern woman.
But I know, right?
Match.com is like, yeah, block her.
I know, right. eHarmony wants nothing to do with me. But
portfolios to avoid.
But that actually drove me nuts, because I saw there were so many of my role models were those women who were able to do that, and I could never turn, because my hobbies were not profitable, you know, like all those domestic type of things that they make a lot of money off of, and like I said, I admire the crap out of them, but I do think that's more conducive. Like you said, their hobbies happen to fill a need, and maybe that's actually what we're saying.
I think it's a great case. I mean, most people, unfortunately, perhaps look at stay-at-home mums in the business world as not having achieved the certain status of things.
Well, they often make a lot more money.
Yeah, right.
I think
I've got my beautiful mum and 2 older sisters. I wouldn't have that job or anything.
And just so y'all know, the most innovative people on the planet are stay-at-home homeschooling moms.
Absolutely.
I mean, and I've talked to entrepreneurs and investors all over the world, and I've talked to stay-at-home homeschooling moms.
Right. They solve real problems.
The most innovative people in the world are homeschooling moms.
My own experience being home with kids, you have to, I mean, thank God I'm a process guy, because, I mean, this is like, there's a lot of moving parts there, and I want to move this faster, you know, but I was thinking, you know, it may not be, there's passion-based businesses that, I mean, maybe that's not just women, there's a lot more women in our society that stay home, right? But I think of, for example, like if you run a wood shop and you just like building stuff, you know, I was showing a good friend, you know, he crafts these beautiful things, and I'm like, do you know that people sell that for 150 bucks on eBay? You know, and I showed him, and I'm like, oh wow, you know, and you could, maybe you don't want to. Some people say, well, you know, once it becomes work, it's not my passion, and that's cool. I get it.
That's basically what we're talking
it's like
about.
if you want to retire, for example, and you love working in the wood shop, well, you make so much stuff, you have inventory. You know, turn it over to me. Like, I love running businesses like that. I'll sell it for you. Don't worry about it. You know, and so I think there are craftsman and craftswoman based businesses that, I mean, if you could sell a dozen alphabet blocks for 90 bucks in, you know, the Brookstone magazine or whatever it is, like, well, go ahead and do that, because you make these handmade things and they're gorgeous.
I think
it's the Etsy economy, really.
Absolutely. I think that, just finishing up, I wanted to say that I think you should protect your hobby and you should protect your passions, because they do translate to who you are in business and who you are in life, definitely, as we talked about, from mine to Monica's to Ledge, all different, but have all translated into other successful businesses. And those businesses might go away, but those passions and hobbies you should protect and keep to yourself and share with family and friends. If you're lucky enough to have that translate, well done. If you've done it, we'd love to hear about it at Serious Startups. Don't forget to follow all of us on Twitter, and of course check out Talkopolis, where you're watching us right now, and probably through Facebook. We've enjoyed your company, and we will see you next time on Serious Startups.